Lionel Messi joining Inter Miami in MLS might trigger more European talent to America. But how well would MLS clubs do if they moved to Europe? So that is exactly what I've done. MLS is now a European league and its best teams will qualify for European competitions. So in 100 years' time, how many Champions Leagues do you think MLS clubs are going to win? I reckon they're going to get at least 5. It is going to take time though, as early on MLS is limited in the number of qualifying places it gets. Given the league has just moved to Europe, it's at the very bottom of coefficient rankings, below Andorra and San Marino. Now, I've got a save file from every year we simulate right after the Champions League final. But as MLS is a summer league like Sweden, Ireland and Iceland, it ends in December. So that means the teams that have qualified have to wait at least 6 months to begin their European campaigns. In Season 1, Orlando City FC won the title, meaning they qualify for the Champions League. But how did they do it? The MLS is split into 2 conferences, the East and the West. There is a combined table called the Supporters' Shield, but to my knowledge, no one actually cares about it. All the teams play against each other, and at the end of the season, the top 7 from each conference qualify for the playoffs. The winner of each conference gets a bye to the semi-finals, and the remaining 6 teams play in the first round. So in this instance, Charlotte FC were the winners of the Eastern Conference, who got a bye to the semi-finals, where they lost to CF Montreal, who won in the first round against New York Red Bulls. On the other side of the draw, Orlando City FC went all the way through to the final and won the Eastern Conference final. This then puts them up against the winner of the Western Conference, which in this case was Colorado Rapids, but Orlando City won and they are the MLS champions. I am completely with you, it is very, very unnecessary. The main thing is they qualify for the Champions League first preliminary round, where they beat Andorran side Santa Coloma in the first round before beating Budućnost from Montenegro in the second round, setting up a first qualifying round tie against Pristina from Kosovo. It was a pretty comfortable win. They then overcame Sheriff, which is no easy challenge, but fell to Copenhagen in the third qualifying round. This knocked them down to the Europa League qualifying, which they lost to Slovan Bratislava, but not to worry, as that knocked them down into the Europa Conference League group stage, where they got absolutely battered. This feels very disappointing. I would have thought they had the quality to actually get out of the group. So not really an ideal start at all, but they did pick up some good coefficient points to actually get more teams into the competitions next season. This time it was Real Salt Lake who qualified for the Champions League, although lost early on to Legia Warsaw. This then knocked them down to the Europa Conference League, where they overcame Armenian side Urartu Yerevan and then Coups from Finland to qualify for the league phase. By virtue of goal difference, Real Salt Lake came 7th in the Conference League, which means they go straight through to the round of 16. This is way more like it, unless you are the New York Red Bulls, who came 31st. In the round of 16, they just beat Braga, before then beating Espanyol on penalties in the quarterfinals. This then set up a quarterfinal against Lyon, which they then lost. But this is really good progress from the MLS sides. Hopefully we're going to see a winner in the next few seasons. But we didn't see a winner. The next few years, clubs did qualify for the knockout rounds, but no one got as far as Real Salt Lake's semi-final. Until 2040. LAFC have been under Alexander Frey's management for almost a decade, leading them to their second MLS Cup. They have also just won the North American Champions League. I'm not quite sure how they qualified for that. Weirdly, it doesn't show up in their list of trophies, but this database does break the game a little bit because, well, America is not meant to be in Europe. But while Charlotte FC came second in the Conference League phase, LAFC had a bit of an underwhelming tournament, only coming 10th. In the playoff round, they managed to overcome Budapest Honved before getting past Cluj in the round of 16, where Charlotte FC lost to Feyenoord. In the quarterfinals, they had to rely on penalties to beat Italian side Udinese, but then they lost to eventual winners Feyenoord as they claimed their second scalp from the MLS this season. Also, I will say it so you don't say it in the comment section, that is Leyton Orient in the semi-finals of the Conference League. I don't know how they've got there, they just seem to be really good. But LAFC felt that they could do better. So they spent almost 25 million on Real Madrid's Ian Badiola to take their midfield to the next level. And he certainly helped, as LAFC dominated the Europa Conference League phase, winning it ahead of FC Cincinnati, who themselves were knocked out in the round of 16 by Granada, but LAFC progressed past Partizan. The quarterfinals saw them come up against Cypriot side Apollon, but again they managed to scrape through, winning 4-3 in aggregate. And this time in the semi-finals, where they fell last year, they beat Hansa Rostock to give an MLS club its first final in European football. All they've got to do is beat Bolton Wanderers. But it was Peter Kay who had the last laugh as Bolton batter LAFC to win the title. And so by 2047, 25 years in the future, LAFC were the only MLS side to reach a continental final in the Conference League. The Europa League is frustrating as no MLS club makes the final, but Real Oviedo, Leyton Orient and Würzburger Kickers reach finals. That, by the way, is my new favourite team name. And in the Champions League, the only new winners are PSG and Newcastle, as well as a final appearance from Nice. Maybe Jim Ratcliffe is the right man for Manchester United after all. But the near success of LAFC has to be a good thing, right? It shows the MLS is pulling in the right direction. Well, the league itself has only risen up to 10th in competition reputation rankings from 17th where it started. That means players are more inclined to join teams from Belgium and Greece before they think about going to America. And they're only 11th in coefficient rankings, meaning that teams from the 10 leagues above them are performing better in Europe, meaning they only get 2 Champions League spots. So really, the LAFC story was an exception, and the other teams just aren't doing nearly as well. And I think I might know why. As with all American sports, there is a salary cap in place. In this instance, £120,000 per week for the entire team, excluding 3 players who get to have unlimited earnings. They are called designated players. So with the salary cap and designated players, Real Salt Lake have the highest annual salary, just shy of 17 million. And they need to compete with Newcastle, who spend $258 million a season. Leyton Orient, by the way, are just mental. But there are also 7 teams in the Championship with higher salaries than all the clubs in MLS. So in order for MLS clubs to actually win something, they need to recruit incredibly smart and have quite a few teams doing very well at the same time. Now, we could just take the salary cap away, but this is Football Manager and its databases, and it's very complicated already to actually make this work in the first place, so I'm not going to mess around with things too much and break the game even more. In fact, it wasn't even me that made this database. I couldn't work out how to do it, so I asked the database genius Dan if he could make it work, and he did make it work, so thank you very much to Dan. Go check him out on Twitter. Although, if he could have programmed the MLS clubs to actually be good in Europe, that would have been very handy, because over the next 25 years, only one club does any good. The year is 2055 and the New York Red Bulls have gone almost a decade without winning a trophy. That was my best New York accent, by the way. I'll stop it now, I do apologise. The team are captained by Serbian international Uroš Milutinovic and spurred on by Peruvian wonderkid Jerry Hidalgo. They had a pretty unassuming Conference League campaign, finishing in 15th place, meaning they have to go through the playoff round. After drawing the first leg 2-2, it was a Milutinovic goal that helped them progress to the round of 16, where they met fellow MLS side Colorado Rapids, winning the tie thanks to a Jerry Hidalgo goal in the second leg. AIK were no match for them in the quarterfinals, setting them up for a semi-final against Manchester City, where they got battered 7-1, and that is the very best any MLS side have done since LAFC reached the final. It just wasn't meant to be for the dynamic duo of Uroš and Jerry. Both of those players, by the way, are subscribed to the channel, so if they're subscribed, you probably should as well. So by season 50, Bristol Rovers were reaching the final of the Conference League. Wycombe Wanderers and Wrexham were winning the Europa League, whilst Leyton Orient and FC Annecy were losing the Champions League final. I genuinely reckon Leyton Orient have done better in this save file than if I'd given them £1 billion. They are just unreal. The next good run for any MLS club comes in 2092. This has just been painful, really, hasn't it? Austin FC are managed by Vladimir Markovic, a former Serbian international who came through at Tampa Bay United. They're captained by veteran Serbian centre-back Andreja Ninkovic, who spent a decade at the club. and they're led by a new hotshot signing, Jason Prescott. They have a terrible league phase campaign in the Conference League, sneaking into 23rd place on goal difference. In the playoff round, Andrea keeps a clean sheet as Prescott scores a penalty, his first goal for the club, to progress. He then bags his second in the round of 16, as well as scoring his penalty as they beat Malmo to reach the quarters, where they sneak past Romanian side UTA Arad to set up a semi-final against Tottenham Hotspur. Andrea and Jason are going to have to use all of their skills and abilities to be able to keep a clean sheet and score goals, and they lost 6-0 on aggregate. MLS clubs just can't seem to do anything. Well, maybe Austin FC could pull off a miracle. The year is 21-16 and Austin are the reigning MLS Cup champions. Managed by Marcos Riviera, an insanely good manager who spent time at Austin before learning his trade elsewhere before then coming back, leads a side orchestrated by Romanian wonderkid Ondrej Paška, recently bought for 32 million. After a slow start in the Conference League and coming 15th, they then batter Panathinaikos with Paška racking up assists. The round of 16 was more tough. Finnish side Niston put up a good fight but ultimately crumbled. Paška then returned to his native Romania to comfortably beat Rapid Bucharest before breezing past Rangers and breaking Scottish hearts in the semi-finals. This then set up a final against German side Bochum, both teams looking for their first piece of European silverware. Bochum's only slip-up though had been a 3-3 draw in the league phase, and so went into the final as favourites. But Marcos Riviera is a world-class manager for a reason. They lose 1-0 in a game where they were absolutely dominated. And so by 100 years in the future, they still didn't have a Champions League final appearance, but big up Granada for winning it, not a single final appearance in the Europa League, despite Slovenian side Koper winning it recently, and of course they lost 2 Conference League finals. In fact, I have painstakingly gone through 100 years of data to find out which MLS club got the furthest in the Champions League, and it was Real Salt Lake coming 25th in the league phase in the 2053-54 season, missing out on progressing by 4 goal difference. Although you could argue that in the 97-98 season, New York City FC, who came 26th, only missed out on progressing by 1 goal difference. So actually a little less than the 5 Champions Leagues that I thought they were going to win. Let's try and ignore that part of the video maybe. In reality though, if the MLS was a European league, would their clubs go on to win a Champions League? 100% yes, of course they would if they had the opportunity to actually play in the Champions League or other European competitions. That US investment would just go straight into those clubs and they become absolute powerhouses. American investors love American-made stuff. But to be fair, I think if they were put in it right now, they would stand a good chance of doing fairly well in the Europa Conference League. But only if they sign Romanian wonderkid like Ondrej Paška, which is quite the coincidence because I've just come back from a trip to Romania where I dragged my girlfriend on an away day which she didn't know she was going on. It was rather frustrating for her, very amusing for me, and hopefully you would enjoy that video as well. It's on screen right now.